entrepreneurs need to be risk-seeking. Conservative behavior gets you nowhere in a startup. You're really unlikely to succeed. And when you make conservative decisions, it increases your unlikeliness to succeed. So risk-seeking is important. Just a bias towards action versus a bias towards meetings and thinking. There's a term, GSD, get shiitake done, that we use around here. Is people who come from big companies oftentimes at HubSpot want to meet about things, want to think about things versus just get it done, just try it and iterate on it. I think in a startup, either you're a builder or you're a seller. Either you can actually build something useful, or you can sell it or market it in a really clever way. There's not much room in a startup for that in-between model. The right number of people to start a company is actually 2. At MIT, they talk about 4 or 5, and they sort of push you in these groups of 4 or 5, particularly in classes like New Enterprises. I think the problem with having a lot of founders involved, one is just financial. By the time you end up raising venture capital, your slice of the pie gets really small. But the other is just sort of groupthink. The way I think of a startup is you're typically attacking industry incumbent players, and you have to think very aggressively and think out of the box. And when you have 4 or 5 people around the table with 4 or 5 different backgrounds, you tend to have sort of lowest common denominator types of thinking, and it's hard to make very radical, aggressive decisions. And one thing that doesn't matter is age. I think if you're a young kid at MIT or at Sloan, you're in your 20s, I think there's no reason why you couldn't start a company and be CEO of it and run it. You look at the most interesting companies in tech, at least, and I follow tech more than anything else, it's usually founder-led. If you've got any kind of entrepreneurial bent to you, I would go work for a startup, or I would start something myself. It's a lot of fun. You're really impacting the economy. You can put a dent in the universe. It's really exhilarating. And my advice would be, start a company and get a good mattress, because you spend 99% of your life either sleeping on that mattress or working in that company. It's a lot harder to raise a venture capital round than people think. I had a background in venture capital. My co-founder is great. We had a really good story. We still had a hard time raising our Series A. And by the time we were done with all the 50-50 chance meetings, we were about 10 meetings in. It was like 1/2 to the 10th power. So it's very unlikely you get through all those flaming hoops. So just setting expectations of how hard it is, how much time it takes, and then brainstorming around should you syndicate and should you not. I am a big fan of not syndicating. Syndicating is really another term for price fixing in my mind. That I think you should make your venture capital funds compete for your deal, raise the price. Also, when you syndicate, you increase the likelihood that you're going to trip on one of those flaming hoops in 1/2 to the 5th power halfway through, and then you blow up both your deals when you're both your venture funds when you do syndication. The company was literally born out of MIT. From a bunch of different levels, it was very helpful. First level is MIT is a great place to find a co-founder. So I found sort of the ideal co-founder for my company. I'm kind of a marketing guy. I found a tech guy. There's a nice overlap between us, and we get along well. It's just a great place to find a co-founder. So that was the first step MIT helped. And then we needed some funding. And one of my professors, Ed Roberts, he was the original seed investor for the company. He put in some money, and he convinced all his friends to put in some money, so that really got us going. And then we needed some early customers to test the product, and I would say 10 out of our first 20 customers were classmates of ours from Sloan, which was very, very helpful. Very, very, very helpful along a number of lines. I guess the other place it was very helpful is I would say 10 out of our first 20 employees were MIT grads of some flavor. So the company really was born out of MIT. It really came out of MIT. From day one, I think one of the best things we've done at HubSpot is we built it for the long haul. We want to build something like a Salesforce or an Amazon or a Google, a big giant West Coast company here in the East Coast. And every decision we made along the way was built for that. If we were making decisions along the way that would make us an attractive potential acquisition from Salesforce.com, it would have been a very different set of decisions, and the company would look very different right now. And we probably already would have been bought by Salesforce.com if that were going to happen. I'm in no position to give Larry Page advice. The guy's a rock star. I really admire the guy. I think they should have bought Facebook 4 or 5 years ago. That would have been my advice 4 or 5 years ago. 2020 hindsight, though. In terms of areas that are interesting, it's really super obvious, but mobile is incredibly interesting. America's been very late to the game. We're starting to figure it out, and I would say the Sloanies have figured it out, because when I do my office hours at MIT, I would say 2/3 of the companies I look at now are, they start with mobile and then think about the rest, basically. I think that's, obviously a really rich area of innovation over the next 5-10 years. The other is local. I mean, Groupon's opened the world's eyes that you can make money from these guys. If I were to start HubSpot over again, I would do a hyper-local version of HubSpot, and we're thinking about funding that project internally, actually. I think there's an awful lot of interesting opportunity at the intersection of local and mobile and marketing that could be a big, big opportunity. Conventional wisdom is actually dead in so many ways. Here at HubSpot, we look at conventional wisdom, we sort of look at what's the way that everybody else does something, and we question it, and we pull it apart, and we rethink it. And I would say 90% of the time we go another way. The conventional wisdom is the death of a startup. When you follow what Oracle does, or you follow what Microsoft does, you follow what Apple does, it's so different from what you're living and breathing with your tight resources that I would say question conventional wisdom in every way, shape, or form. It's the people who question conventional wisdom and that ultimately win. It's the Steve Jobs, it's the Larry Ellisons, it's the Bill Gates, it's the people who really fight conventional wisdom and go the opposite way that are the big winners. And I would be risk-seeking and anti-conventionalism if I were to give advice to somebody who's at Sloan right now.